Hi everyone, this is Chad Schneider again, and I'm going to do game number 4 of my analysis for the Rocky Mountain Team Chess Challenge, played between 7 state champions from Colorado and 7 state champions of New Mexico. This is the third board matchup in our first round between Nino Neilson of Colorado and Doug Thigpen of New Mexico. Both players qualified for the tournament by winning the Class A sections of their state's respective class championships. Doug Thigpen comes into the tournament ranked 1998, and actually he was a co-champion at the New Mexico Open, and thus could have been the first board as well if he had won a playoff, but he deferred the playoff, and we never uh, had such a tournament. Nino Neilson was someone that, as a New Mexico player and captain, I had a lot of trouble finding any games from her to prepare Doug. Um, we thought it was kind of weird that someone would come into a tournament with a provisional 2,000 plus rating after 12 games. Because usually you get a provisional rating and it's low and you build it up. And so we figured she was from somewhere else. We didn't know where. I looked several places. Turns out that Nielsen was not her maiden name, and she's actually from Georgia, the country, not the state, which is a place where they're very serious about women's chess, and she obviously had a lot of training. Um, and so we head into this match tied at 2, and here are the pictures of the players. Doug Thigpen is loosely grasping the hand of Nino Neilson. Doug's on the right, and Nino's on the left. And so let's go ahead and get started with the game. So E4 was played by Nino. C5. Doug oscillates between C5 and E6 typically. He used to play C5 and then tried to switch, and then I guess for this match he decided to play the Sicilian. So it's all pretty standard. Doug chooses to play, a somewhat less aggressive line in the Sicilian. Bishop c4. It's probably the sixth or seventh most common move played. Very aggressive. I mean, not the most aggressive move, but we came to find out just before the tournament from one of our players from northern New Mexico who had played Nino that she's a very aggressive player, and it judging by her what we saw throughout the tournament, this definitely stood true. All right, so these are all really, common to, you know, not uncommon moves in the Sicilian. To go through everything, it'd be several hours. Um, but knight c5, this is one common plan for black in these lines, where you play the pawns up and then knight b to d7, knight c5. Um, the a6 is typically to avoid things like knight b5. Black has, the pawn on d6 can be weak sometimes, and also white can play for a push on e5 as well. You'll see. So bishop g5, and that becomes sort of this one of the signature moves of the line that Nino plays here. In fact, one of the players who is playing the quad, who briefly saw the game, he asked me afterwards what the game actually was, and he said, "Well, was it a bishop g5 Sicilian?" And I was like, "Yeah, pretty much." And so it's recognizable by that signature move. So queen f3. which is not the most common move. In just about all lines, rook e1 is played before something like queen f3. I'm not sure in this line, but in a lot of lines we see bishop g5. F4 will also be played. So bishop e7 and then queen f3. And usually black will castle here and play something like bishop d7, bishop c6, or castle and b5. And queen c7 is fairly common. Rook d1 seems like a fine move, but usually, as I said earlier, the rook is played to e1 because sort of the nims of its idiom, you overprotect your center pawns, and then eventually push, and that's pretty true in these lines. You really want to overprotect this pawn, and right now there are only two attackers on it: the queen and the knight, and that's why the rook is commonly played to e1. But rook d1 is also a solid move, and it's highly playable. So b5, it tends to it's right off the bat you see it's a blunder, and this is actually a really highly common Sicilian trap that you'll see black falls into. So I'll give you a few more seconds, and if you want to see what white's move probably should be, go ahead and think about it. Okay, well, the move that probably should be played here, and most Sicilian players would play, is e5. So as you can see, it threatens the knight on f6, and you're also threatening queen takes a8. If something like knight to d5, then there's the knight. You can play knight takes d5, and then after pawn takes, bishop takes, you're hitting the f7 and the rook on a8. So, and there are a few other sidelines that can be played, but each of them, pretty sure black has no way out of being anything less than an exchange down with an inferior position. Basically, no compensation. So b5 is probably, well, most definitely premature here. What black would commonly play instead is just castle first, and then let's say h3, just any move. h3 wouldn't necessarily be the move. In fact, I don't think it's a very good move. But or even let's say rook e1, it's a better move. And then let's say b5 is played now. Well, it looks like the same tactic happens, but not really, because you can play bishop b7. And regardless, even if you ignored that and you just took, the queen gets trapped here. So the queen only has one square, queen a7, and then rook a8. And so castle is commonly played there. Bishop d7 is also played, I believe. But the main point is, obviously, the move played in the game should lose to e5. White goes ahead and plays bishop to f6 instead, which I think is actually a pretty substantial mistake. I think after g takes f6, and say you play this, play e5 still, then bishop b7, and the queen has to move even if takes here. You see that white has these massive diagonals to g2 and h2, and black also, let's just say, obviously the queen's under attack, but let's just, for illustrative purposes, there's also the rook will come in here, and so you have a lot of things going on here, and you can also castle queenside. And the black